Okay, let's get started. We'll start off. The Moorhead Public Service Commission welcomes and encourages customer input on issues listed on the agenda or of general water, electric, utility interest, time and commission permitting. Speakers are limited to 3-minute presentation. Customers wishing to address the commission regarding a specific agenda will be afforded the opportunity. At this point, I don't see anybody in the audience willing to address the commission. So we'll move forward with call to order. Commissioner Gilbertson, roll call. Okay.
Here.
All right. Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Daly. Commissioner Durand.
Here.
And Chairperson Thompson is out. Oh, that's right. Thank you, Travis. Just a reminder, whenever there's a remote commissioner participation, all votes following a motion must be roll call vote. So Commissioner Heidi Durand will be participating in this meeting virtually from her address at 3625 22nd Avenue South, Moorhead, Minnesota, 56560, which location is open and accessible to the public during the meeting. With that, we'll move to agenda item number 2, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Gilbertson.
Second.
Motion from Gilbertson, seconded by Baker. All in favor? All right, roll call vote, sorry. Commissioner Gilbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Baker?
Aye.
Commissioner Durand?
Yes.
And Commissioner Paulson? Aye. Item number 2, approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Durand.
Second. Gilbertson.
Commissioner Durand, seconded by Commissioner Gilbert. Commissioner Gilbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Baker?
Aye.
Commissioner Durand?
Yes.
Commissioner Paulson? Aye. All right, customers to be heard. We already took care of that, so we'll move to old business. Anybody have any old business to share? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, reports. City Council, Commissioner Gilbertson.
It's on a narrow vote that we approve the Israeli-Palestinian ceasefire proclamation last Monday. So waiting any day for the peace to happen, but it hasn't quite happened yet, I guess. So we're just plugging along with that. And then on Monday, we've got a big Renaissance Zone application to be approved for the first project in Moorhead Center Mall. Exciting stuff to happen on Monday.
Yeah, I attended the Moorhead EDA meeting on behalf of MPS, and they did a presentation for the first phase of that. It looks like it's going to be very nice and a very welcome addition to downtown. So I think we're all looking forward to how that's going to come together.
I have a vested interest in it, but it's a great start to the project downtown.
Sure. Okay, moving on to item B, Public Service Commission. Any reports? Hearing none, we'll move to the General Manager's report.
Sure. So I've got a couple items on the General Manager report. We did just an update more for education on the underground cable replacement. And back in the 70s, we started putting underground cable into Moorhead. Over the years that's grown, we started seeing some issues in the 80s and 90s, so we started a replacement plan for that. Again, the cable is supposed to last about 40 years initially. We weren't seeing that, probably due to the type of soils we have around here. And we've continued that on an annual basis going forward. We've backed off a little bit over the last few years because we're seeing less underground cable faults. So we're transitioning some of our work to overhead maintenance and things like that to help keep the overall system up, keep it reliable, things like that. I think within probably the next 5 to 10 years, we could see an increase in our cable faults. A lot of that is due to the age of our feeders, which you're going to have more customers out at once. So we'll keep an eye on that, and as those start coming about, we'll start transitioning back to more underground cable replacement again. So, along with that, we did a quick NERC update. We do this typically on an annual basis as well. NERC is the North American Electric Reliability Corporation. So this deals with all of our transmission lines that we have and all the requirements that we have federally to make sure we're doing the right maintenance, doing the right cybersecurity. All those things are tied into this. We got about 38 standards that we review on an annual basis. Last year we went through an audit. We finished that successfully as well. A couple of modifications that'll come up this year as well too on some of the standards. They're always changing, so there's always things that we have to adjust or modify either operationally or through testing or maintenance and things like that. So just wanted to give you an update on that as well. And then finally, we got the federal and state legislative updates. Again, the state updates, we get those typically sent out on a weekly basis from MMUA and MRES. We've got last week's update because of the timing of it. Along with that, we did a federal legislative update back in late February. I was out in Washington, D.C. with other MMUA and MRES members and employees, and sat down and visited with the federal elected officials for the state of Minnesota, along with others for MRES as well too. And I provided the 5 key points that they're looking at or pushing on this year. Protected resource adequacy, again, that's making sure that as you turn the light switch on, there's generation available to supply that. Protecting supply chain. We've seen that kind of back off a little bit, but there's still a lot of things that continue to have longer than normal lead time. So again, pushing on some of that. Again, a lot of the supply chain is really referencing the transformer efficiencies that the DOE is pushing. They want higher efficiencies within the transformers, but it's the same equipment or materials that you're using for EV charging stations and for the EV vehicles as well too. So not a lot of that material, and so it's requiring longer lead times to get transformers built as well too. Permit reform, again, that's more just under the push to, again, permitting for transmission lines, generation facilities, things like that. Again, it takes 5-10 years to get things permitted when you need it sooner than that. So they're pushing on that as well too. And finally, grid security is another one. So I think I caught them all. 1, 2, 3, 4. Might be missing one here. So yeah, that's kind of the update on what we were talking with the legislative group out in DC with, and I think it's points of discussion as well in Minnesota. So other than that, they've got the state updates from MRES in here and MMUA as well. So and that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Travis. Any questions for Travis? I have just one quick one, Travis, just because I actually got this question yesterday of why it takes so long to get transformers. And so is that one of the primary reasons?
Typically,
is that
it's the core material.
The core material,
yeah.
And needing to meet federal regulations to have higher efficiencies?
Correct, yeah. So all the transformers that we get now fall under the most recent DOE requirements. They just added new requirements in, I think it was the last year or two. And so there's a pushback on that because that's going to extend the supply chain delays because of the core material that they need to build the transformers. So it's the internal pieces or the internal guts of the transformer that are the supply chain delays.
Yeah.
And I know they're looking at, and we actually use both. There's the amorphous cores, which is like a hybrid core. It's got better efficiencies in it as well too. They're a lot heavier and a lot more expensive. Well, I shouldn't say expensive to build, but they've got some other electrical differences in them. They just sit there not fully loaded. So there's some value to them to have them if they're fully loaded, but if they're 25% loaded, they have other issues with them. So, or they can system-wide over the long term.
Great, thank you. Do we need a vote to accept the manager's report? Okay. So I'll look for a motion to accept the General Manager Schmidt's report.
So moved,
approved,
Gilbertson.
Duran. Second, Duran.
All right. I got a motion from Gilbertson, second from Duran. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote. Commissioner Gilbertson,
Aye.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Duran,
Yes.
Commissioner Paulson. Aye. All right, moving on to item number 9. Discussion about an approve amended Exhibit A to the Transmission Facilities Assignment Agreement with Missouri River Energy Service. I believe General Manager Schmidt will take this.
Yep, I'll be handling this with Taylor out tonight. So back in 2016, 2015 timeframe, MPS and Missouri River moved into the Southwest Power Pool, and this is really what this Transmission Facilities Assignment Agreement revolves around. At that point in time, MPS was available to recover some of our transmission costs, or all of our transmission costs, through we call it ATRR, Annual Transmission Revenue Recapture. And with that, we have to put these facilities into a facilities assignment agreement. So how it technically works is we assign physical operational control of our equipment over to MRAS, which is then in turn given to Southwest Power Pool. We own and maintain physical control of that equipment. So any type of maintenance, we still have to deal with that. That's where we get our recovery on our investments for our transmission facilities. And with the new project that we've got going on down at the DOE substation, we had to update all that equipment that is included in that project into the Exhibit A that's included here tonight for you to approve. And so it's just really adding the reactors and updating the new transformer that we're adding there, along with some of the other facilities at the substation. So that is what it overall is, and just asking for commission approval on that for this evening.
All right, thank you, Travis. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Duran.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Commissioner Gilbertson,
Aye.
Commissioner Baker, Commissioner Duran,
Yes.
Commissioner Paulson. Aye. Item number 10, approve the 2024 cooperative and self-performed water main improvement projects.
Sure. I'm going to let Jake speak for a while here. So Jake's going to come up and talk about our 2024 water main replacement projects and how we're going to handle those. Go ahead, Jake.
Thank you, Travis. Jake Long, Water Distribution Manager. The item in front of you tonight is to approve the 2024 cooperative projects for water main improvements with the City of Moorhead Street and underground utility improvement projects, and also Moorhead Public Services self-performed water main improvement projects. MPS's current strategic goal is to replace approximately 1.25 miles of old cast iron water main. And to accomplish this goal, it's been important for MPS to complete both cooperative projects with the city and through a combination of cooperative and MPS self-performed projects. Listed in the agenda item, the 2024 water main improvement projects table are projects that city staff and MPS have planned and coordinated that best fit both project needs. Last year, MPS began the process of including water main replacement within the city's bidding documents for street and utility improvement projects. This project went very well last year, and in 2024 we added 2 additional water main replacement projects in the city's street improvement plans. For these cooperative projects, the city will hold the contracts, and MPS will be responsible for items that are removed, furnished, or installed solely for the water main purposes. We work together, and MPS will provide our water field technician to review construction progress and track quantities and items related to the water main replacement. And then following the completion of the project, the city will submit an invoice with an itemized breakdown of the cost for the construction. In addition to the cooperative projects, MPS will also self-perform additional projects in other city street improvement project areas, and one other failure-prone and maintenance project. Overall, MPS is proposing to complete approximately 1.8 miles of water main replacement this year. MPS crews are currently scheduled to replace a little over half of that, while the other half will be replaced through the cooperative projects with the city. MPS Water Division budgeted $1.9 million to complete the design and construction for all of the 2024 water main improvement projects. And with that, we look forward to another safe, and it's going to be a busy summer, and luckily it looks like we might get a earlier start this year. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, it's Commissioner Gilbertson.
Thanks, Commissioner Paulson. I've got two questions. One, do you see the price? How do you see the price compared to this year to last year? And then I see you go with the lead services lines right to the property line. Is there anything from the property line to the house
Yeah, so I'll answer
that's
the
being dealt with?
first question is, there was one project that the city just bid that came back last week, and it looked like prices were fairly steady with what they were last year, maybe a little bit lower actually on the low bid. So that was good to see. And then as far as materials goes, the materials that we just bid out for our self-performed projects, they were also with a little bit of a 3% increase, I would say, overall. So better than what it was a couple years ago for sure. Regarding lead service lines, that one's a tricky one for these projects that we're currently completing right now. We are replacing from the water main just past the property line or just past the sidewalk. We're still working through a lot of the funding mechanisms and projects that we submitted for a couple years ago already. We had a meeting on it today, and we, along with a lot of other cities, are kind of figuring out that process. But for now, just because it's a huge coordination issue, plus receiving those funds, there's a list of requirements needed to receive those funds. And so right now we will go up to the property line, connect back into it. And what I see in the future is we'll come back and complete the remaining private side of the service line once more of the grant and the drinking water revolving fund loan and grant opportunities are a little bit more clear.
You'll come back to the private side.
Correct.
Will that be more expensive though once you close up the road?
Well, we're going to be, we'll replace past the sidewalk. So now you picture the sidewalk and then the private side of the, it'll be more grass and restorations area. So the intent right now is to get everything replaced that would be under the road, sidewalk, curb, and it'd be digging up in the boulevard, or basically the private property at this point.
Wheelhouse of.
So, yeah, right now, I think was it October timeframe, we've got to have our plan in place for lead service line replacement of this year. And so there's still a lot of unclear requirements and how you handle the non-public side of that water line. And and Jake can maybe answer this a little bit more. We were actually going to plan to do an update on lead service lines at one of the next meetings regarding this, because there's still a lot of information. Jake and Mark were just on a call today trying to understand more on that dwarf loan application grant funding process. Because, you know, we're trying to understand, okay, how does this work if it's private and public and you're using public funds to do it? How does that all work together to make sure that there's not a beneficial impact one way or the other? I think that's correct, right, Jake?
Yeah, right now our rules and regs state that MPS owns up the public side of the service line, which is from the water main to the curb stop. The private portion is from the curb stop inside the house. So one of the tricky parts about receiving the funding is doing a cooperative project where it's all street and utility improvements, it's a whole entire project, is what we've been told, is that entire project now will need to meet all of the federal requirements to receive that funding. So typically, those projects have a fairly large increase for when you meet all these federal requirements. So one thing that we're looking at, just to try to plan ahead a little bit, is how those costs will pencil out, because a $3 million project for street and utility improvements, 10, 15, 20% is a pretty significant increase in what we're going to get on lead service line replacements, if that's going to balance out.
A lot of it comes down to federal Davis-Bacon wages. I think what Jake's saying is that you'd have to pay Davis-Bacon wages for the entire project, where if you just come back and you do the service line itself, there's a cost savings there because you're only doing one house at a time. Yeah, there's probably some additional restoration costs, but you're not paying 20, 30% more for the overall construction of the street project, because you got to encompass the entire project into Davis-Bacon wages. So concrete, sewer line, anything that gets replaced has to be at that Davis-Bacon rate instead of at a bid rate. So there's a cost savings there that we're trying to figure out, and we are talking and working with the city on that as we work through these and how we manage them. Because there's also talks about even replacing the sewer lines at the same time in some of these older properties as well too. So
It may actually be cheaper to replace the private part
separately.
at a later time,
Correct.
versus what we had last summer, where it was cheaper to turn the streets up. Cheaper to do the whole right to the house.
Correct. Some of the rules have
So-
changed, or some of the requirements have changed, where they're now, I think, wanting to do, if you do the full project together. Now, I think if Jake came in and said, we're gonna do 10 of the houses on this street separately, we could do it that way. But when you combine, or you do a combined project, it becomes more expensive. Is that correct, Jake?
Yeah, well, last year we never replaced all the way to the house either. I don't know if that's what you meant. Were you thinking last year we replaced all the way to the house, or?
Well, I don't know if it was sewer line or what it was, but there was some issue. It was cheaper to do it when they redid the street.
Oh.
And then later,
Yeah,
then
that's when the city goes in and does a sewer, when they allow or they let the customers know, hey, we're doing a project, and if you want to replace your sewer line at the same time, it's more cost effective to do the sewer line. That's different than doing the lead service line piece. So.
Yeah, really, we're
where-
set up pretty well to minimize any other extra pavement and restoration if you have to come back in the future like we will on these projects to replace the private owned, we're going to be set up pretty well where we're not going to be disturbing the new roadway or the new sidewalk. We'll be able to dig more right in the front yards, basically, of these homes and replace that.
we can
last
drink water
portion.
through partial lead, not just a full lead. A shorter lead pipe is better than a full length.
And the other piece of the private side is that's what we've been told is that's going to be fully funded. So that cost should be getting reimbursed for that, so. Well, like Travis mentioned, we plan to bring a report back that try to go through this a little bit better than what kind of have a plan in place. Right now, there's just a lot of moving parts of it, and we're trying to really narrow it down and come up with the best game plan that best fits MPS.
All right, any additional questions? Okay, can I have a motion to move forward with the 2024 water main projects?
Second.
Motion by Baker, seconded by Gilbertson. Roll call vote. Commissioner Gilbertson,
Aye.
Commissioner Baker, Commissioner Durand,
Yes.
and Commissioner Paulson. Aye. I don't believe we have executive session, Travis?
Nope, not tonight.
Okay, we'll move forward. Item number 12, upcoming meetings. We're anticipating a meeting on the 2nd of April.
Not planning to have
Not
that.
planning on having that one, okay, at this time. And then April 16th, 2024.
Yep, we will be.
All right. Meeting opportunities for the commissioners on item number B, make yourself aware. And item number 13, adjourn. Need a vote to adjourn or? Yes, okay. Commissioner Gilbertson,
Aye.
Commissioner Baker, Commissioner Durand,
Yes.
and Commissioner Paulson. Aye. Meeting is adjourned.